You're listening to the Picks from the Paddock Turf Talk podcast.
Good evening. It is me, Rory Paddock, for Picks from the Paddock.co.uk, being broadcast live at just gone nearly 9:10 on the 20th of September. It's the Turf Talk podcast, not only with myself, but also with these absolute reprobates, Matt Polly and Mr. Christopher Connolly. How are we doing, boys?
Not bad.
Don't all shout at once, like right, boys. We'll get stuff into things. We're not going to. There's not been too much on the racing world. Gordon Elliott's back. Ooh. Anyway, big one of the weekend. Gold Cup, Bielsa. I mean, it's a horse missing a lot, and it's in terms of winning a big race like this, since it's changed to King Power and stuff. Did it well enough, Chris? Much you can take out of that race, or pretty much Gold Cup and how well it did what it needed to do. The form not really, worth much going forward, really, or?
Well, you'd have to probably upgrade Bielsa, given that he raced alone for much of the race. He was an impressive winner, if you like. Well, he was an impressive winner, let's be right. And let's be honest and say that this horse has been threatening to land a very big handicap for quite a long time now, certainly since his 2-year-old days. I don't know what's happened in between. Maybe he's found it hard to readjust. Some sprinters are like that. I always say never to give up on sprinters, and of course I never listened to myself. I gave up on him a while back, but it's a fantastic training performance from Kevin Ryan, who just seems to be landing everything in front of him over sprint trips at the minute. So richly deserved. I'm not going to knock him. I'm not going to give any eye catcher out the race. I just don't think it was a race to be doing that with. So, a nod of appreciation towards Kevin Ryan, and Bielsa deserved that, you have to say.
Yeah, very much so. I think it's one of those, isn't it? Like we said, like I was guilty of doing the same. I thought it was going to be a really decent horse. I actually know. Well, I say no. So, the joys of social media communication with his previous owner, when he used to race under different stilts before King Power bought the horse, and it was a horse that was going places, And then it's one of those that's just like you said. It's promised a lot without doing, and you knew it would deliver one day, but following it along after season without it doing so, your pockets can only be so deep, before you end up with hundreds of cliff horses. And I was against it despite the money. I didn't think it had much of a chance, and he did it pretty much alone, didn't it? You can't really knock it. Matt, pretty impressed with the winner.
Yeah. I mean, Chris has wrapped it up, hasn't he? He had to make his own, do his own donkey work on his own down the stand side, which was the side of the track that had been pretty much unfavoured in the previous sprints. And I mean, he's one of those horses that could potentially, if they keep him in training, could potentially pick up a group race maybe if conditions are right. And I think, maybe two to take out of the race. The horse that finished second, looked the winner of Furlong Out, Great Ambassador. He's definitely got some more potential. And Count Dorsey, I think, ran really well. He's definitely a winner waiting to happen. He finished a fine third in the Portland week before. He came there with a chance with Great Ambassador and looked like a real threat furlong down, but maybe a combination of running back a bit too soon and maybe 6 furlongs just stretching him a little bit. I could see him winning a 5 furlong handicap at Newcastle in the next month or so. So he's definitely one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, the second one was well fancied as well. Won it on Saturday. Seems to be, have the potential compared to a lot of others. Obviously, not as many miles on the clock either. That was obviously the big race on Saturday. You know what? I was going to get involved in. I was going to touch upon the big debate at the moment, which is the whole, do we have too much racing? Do we have racehorses? You know what? I can't be arsed. It's been done to death. So you know what, boys? For those that come to this for a bit of fun, we'll keep it light. We'll keep it breezy. So last week I said to you two that we were going to do something called Fantasy Stable. I had a couple of posts on Twitter and a few replies in terms of people that have put forward their horses. Now, those that didn't listen to last week's episode, these were the stipulations. Basically, pick 4. Basically, it was a fantasy stable of picking 4 horses A sprinter, or possibly between 5 furlongs and 6 furlongs. A classic type, so a 1 mile 4 horse. A stayer, so 1 mile 6 and upwards. And a handicapper at any sort of trip. Stipulations, all horses must have raced at least 2 full seasons between 1995 and the present day. Every horse must have raced at least once in either the UK or Ireland. The handicapper you select must not have won a listed or group race. And each horse, bar the handicapper, cannot have raced in more than 3 of the same seasons as any other horse in your fantasy stable. Of those ones that, again, bar the handicapper. So the way it's going to work, chaps, is a little bit like a NFL draft. I have, if you can see it on here, 3 names in a wheel. I'm going to hit the wheel. It'll pick out a name. Whoever comes first will get first choice. They would be able to choose what of the 4 sort of brackets they want to go for first. Whoever gets second choice, third choice. However, when it goes for the first 3, we then reverse it round, and whoever was third in the first round gets to go first in the next, and so on. Don't worry, it's complicated. It's not as complicated as I'm making it out with. So what I will do is I will hit spin. Who comes out first? It's not been rigged, just to clarify.
That's surely a fix.
Absolute rig. What a load of old bollocks.
I will see who goes second. Mr. Connolly.
Oh, come on.
There we go. And Matt, you are last in the first round. However, in the next round, you will go first. So, with that being said, it's me up first. Now, am I nasty? Will I go one? What division will I go for? Right, I will go for. We'll go with the stayers. So, stayers, obviously, any horse 1 mile 6 up to 2 mile 4. We've got, you know, the likes of Stradivarius. We've got all sorts of big names in there. I'm going to make it dead simple. Horse that won multiple Ascot Gold Cups. Going to be Aidan O'Brien's Yates for me. It's going to be Yates. It can't be any other horse. Sorry, Strad. Decent horse, but Yates definitely by far the best stayer of the last, 25, 26 years for me. Easy, no question. No other horses even come, well, Stradivarius sort of come close, but really, no horse is decent at that over 2 mile 4. So many Group 1s. Ascot Gold Cup pretty much is his race. So for me, chaps, stayer has to be Yates. Can't really argue with that. But Mr. Connolly, you get second bat, as it were. Stayer.
Has this got to be a stayer or no?
It has indeed.
Oh, bollocks.
There we go.
Well, I'm going to be a gentleman and probably let Matt go with Stradivarius if that's on his shortlist. I'm going to go with Cave Tara, trained by Sir Michael Stoute at the beginning of his career before moving on. He's a fantastic horse, a dual Ascot Gold Cup winner, a dual St. Ledger winner, just a fabulous horse. I mean, unfortunately, reoccurring injuries probably cut short his career, but I think he was 10 wins from 15 with a couple of places, European champion stayer on 2 different occasions. He was absolutely fantastic horse, and you know, historically speaking, he doesn't get the same sort of respect or glory as the likes of Yates and Stradivarius, but on his day, he was a very, very good animal, top class, and grossly underrated in my opinion.
Matt, your stay.
Well, despite the opportunity to go for Stradivarius, I'd already came up with another option in this, which I think is.
You can change. It's up to you.
No. I think on this horse's day, I think he would have beat. I think there's every chance he would have beaten Stradivarius, and that horse is Double Trigger. This horse was a proper stayer, strong stayer. It was a strong division he was competing in his era between 94 and 98. He had his full brother Double Eclipse, who was no mug, who he beat in the Goodwood Cup. And unfortunately, I just have to refer to a couple of notes here. This horse won an Italian St. Leger in 94. He won 2 Sagaro Stakes, 2 Henry II Stakes, an Ascot Gold Cup, 3 Doncaster Cups, and 3 Goodwood Cups over a period of 4 years. And as we know by now, as we come to expect, this horse was kept busy because it was trained by Mark Johnston. There was no resting on his laurels here with this horse, so he had to be tough. And on his day, if he got out in a rhythm in front, he was virtually impossible to pass. And I genuinely think on this horse's day, with some decent, good ground, he did get beat a couple of times toward the end of his career. He got beat in the Prix de Cadran when he was odds on. That was in a bog. He also famously got beat in the Melbourne in the Melbourne Cup in Australia when he was favourite over there, but they had unseasonable weather and the ground ended up heavy, and the horse went off favourite. And to quote Jason Weaver on his way back after pulling the horse up and coming off the track, the amount of stick he got from the Australian crowd because everyone was on him because he was favourite. They told him to fuck off back to England and take your dog with you. Was one of the quotes he remembered.
Always love lost between the Aussies and us, isn't it? Yeah.
From the Australian crowd. So I genuinely believe in this horse's prime, he definitely would have got Stradivarius off the bridle. And I mean, Yates is obviously a class horse, but I'm happy with Double Trigger.
Any sort of honourable mentions? Obviously, we mentioned Stradivarius. I know I'm a massive Sergeant Cecil fan. Wasn't perhaps up to there. You've got Persian Punch, maybe.
Persian Punch deserves an honourable mention. Probably my favourite horse of all time. Still up to winning.
Coincidentally, my favourite flat horse of all time, Sergeant Cecil, another slayer as well.
I mean, he was still up to winning group races. Still up to winning group races after 10. Heart on his sleeve, front runner. I mean, the criminal part of Persian Punch's career is that he never won a Group 1 race. The absolute crime that he never did. But he placed in an Ascot Gold Cup and just an absolute warrior. Everyone knows who Persian Punch is, whether you were alive or not. The horse of the people and everything else. Brilliant horse.
And just from my point of view, in terms of honourable mentions, for anyone who's watching this podcast of a certain vintage and will remember horses pre-1995, I think Ardros would top most people's list. He's a Gold Cup winner. He's placed in a Arc de Triomphe, which a lot of horses have struggled to do. And I'm going to continue to mention this throughout the podcast of just to give a little shout out to those viewers that might be of a certain age.
Oh, in other words,
all right, they'll have gone to bed. So that's the stayers done. Now, because Matt was last in that round, Matt gets to go first in this one. And gets to pick what left of the 3. So we've got 1 mile 4 horses, we've got sprinters, and we've got handicappers. It's entirely up to you, Matt. Which one are we going for? And who is your first pick?
Well, this has actually worked out in my favour, hasn't it? Let's be honest. So I'm going to go for the middle distance.
Yeah, see, I could have been cruel here. I could have been cruel with that first round, but I chose not to
the stars.
So
there we go. Here comes Judas.
I'm going to take that opportunity to be cruel because, dog eat dog in this world.
Yeah.
All that. It has to be See the Stars. There is no question.
So we're going 1 mile 4 classics. Yeah.
I mean, this is fantasy football stuff, isn't it? I mean, Ronaldo, if you get first choice of a football team, you're going to pick Ronaldo, aren't you? And quite frankly, it's See the Stars for me here. I mean, a lot of people question, in terms of legendary status, some people put See the Stars on the same page as Frankel. Now, I don't know. That's pushing it a little bit, but there's no doubt this horse was a superstar. Just to reel off his reel off his victories. He won the Bereford Stakes, which is a top quality 2-year-old race. And then obviously his three-year-old career was sensational. Guineas Derby, Irish Champion, Eclipse, and finishing off with the Arc. I mean, there's nothing. What else can you say? Not only that, so he's had the speed to win a Guineas. He's had the stamina to win a Derby and an Arc, and add to all of that, this horse had got the temperament of a riding school pony. Not a bother on him. He strode about like he owned the place. Never saw him sweat. Never saw him get G'd up. The complete racehorse.
Yeah, well, for those that obviously don't know, the back and forth there is See the Star was pretty much my nailed on selection for race. Matt's obviously got it, so I've got to go back to the drawing board. But yeah, I mean, you can't really argue with that, can you? Jeez Louise. Yeah, you can't really think of any more adjectives or be any more superfluous for how good that horse is. Obviously, Chris is going to have been, it's going to have been hard to go against that horse, really. You can't really knock that horse. Even doing relatively all right, he's no Galileo in the sheds, but he's certainly not a bad horse. Yours, my mate, go on. If you end up picking my second choice now, I'll kill you.
Yeah, it's terribly difficult. This is a big problem with going second, isn't it? Every time, get absolutely shafted each way. But yeah, See the Stars, absolutely fantastic horse. Obviously, we're gonna have to put another one forward, but I wouldn't put anyone off See the Stars. But I'm going to go with High Chaparral. Just an absolute iron horse. This horse, I remember him losing on his debut. He lost by a shorted, and I think he won the week after, or maybe a couple of weeks after. But he went to the Racing Post Trophy as a 2-year-old. I think he was around 9-2, but Aidan O'Brien had an odds-on shot in that race, and Kevin Darley rode him. He absolutely powered home, and he had Derby written all over him. He contested the English Derby as a 3-year-old. Before that, he won a massive trial in Ireland, which in them days, the Derrenstown was a big, big trial. He went to Epsom, I think, second favourite again. This time behind Hawkwing in the betting, who looked desperately unlucky in the Guineas. And he dismissed Hawkwing with relative ease. I wouldn't say he absolutely hacked up, but relative ease. He was rock solid, was High Chaparral. Great temperament as well. And it's worth bearing in mind, he followed up in the Irish Derby. He won 2 Breeders' Cup turfs. He should have won 2 Breeders' Cup turfs outright. He was robbed the second time. He clearly won that race, but he was a cast iron horse. Maybe not in the same superstar class as See the Stars, but he was rock solid all the same. And another one, I think, from Aidan O'Brien's yard, who was grossly underrated as time has gone by. He was a fabulous, fabulous horse.
Yeah. I remember the battles that horse used to have with Hawkwing as well. Decent day. And then I think, correct me if I'm right, Alex Ferguson's horse, what was he called? The Rock and Gibraltar, was that same sort of era? Obviously not over 1 mile forward, but decent enough. So what a trio that was for the same year. Jesus. We've obviously got High Chaparral for Chris. We've got See the Stars from that. Honourable mentions again before I give mine. I think the fillies for me.
Lamtara.
A little bit of an honourable mention with Enable and Ouija board. Lamtara, another one. Lamtara was one on the shortlist that, unfortunately, because it only raced one season in 1995 and nothing onwards, didn't qualify. We said from the get-go they needed to have raced at least two seasons worth between 95 and now. I'm going to say something that's a bit controversial before I give mine here, boys. And you'll look at me and you'll probably educate me because, let's be honest, I'm thick. And I might be saying something a tad, like I said, controversial and perhaps talking out of turn, but I'm going to preface this by saying I think he's a superstar, but Galileo won both the English and the Irish Derby, if I'm correct. Then went on to Ascot. I think it won the King George.
King George, Adayar emulated that this year.
But then sort of like disappointed. Then didn't he? He went back to Ireland and disappointed. Then went over to the US and disappointed as well. Now, if it was sort of a debate in terms of like how good a horse was in the sheds, I think it'd be way up there, but perhaps a tad overrated in terms of what it achieved on the track. Or do I deserve a slap for that?
Harsh, very harsh.
Yeah.
I mean, what I mean by that is if we're looking for the best of the best, would it?
Well,
All right, this way. Would Galileo be in your top 5?
No, he'd have never beaten See the Stars, and probably would have struggled to have beaten horses like Chaparral as well. It's all good and well being great in the sheds. He was a fantastic horse in his own right, but you would never rate him the same as See the Stars, for example, or maybe even horses like Lamtara. I know it's been a year before the generation. He's got a very interesting story. If you've never read up about horses, you've got to go and have a look at him. He only raced 4 times, fabulous horse, but Galileo was top class without being a See the Stars type. I'm not going to be disrespectful to a horse like that.
Did he? He got beat in.
I mean,
I'm always saying, he got beat in the Irish Champion, didn't he? He got beat.
He did. He was the Irish Champion.
Yeah, fantastic.
Before he went off to the US.
Yeah, fantastic line.
Mick Cannan said in an interview I watched last year where he felt him was the first time he felt him wobble in that race, where he felt like he'd buckled under pressure, and mate, he's a 3-year-old. Maybe the two, the English and Irish Derby and the King George. He had a hard race in the King George, and maybe it takes its toll on horses, doesn't it? So it's easy to forgive, but horses like Hawkwing, they might have mental and physical frailties, and occasionally when they're on song, they, like he did in the Lockinge that day, which was an absolutely unbelievable performance. But horses, they're not machines. I'll forgive Galileo. He probably hadn't got the toughness, maybe the durability of a High Chaparral or a See the Stars, but he still had plenty of class.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a message there on Facebook. Simon is watching us live. Galileo, in brackets, an absolute legend for me. Yes, yeah, a legend. I just think because I went through like form of various ARC winners, Derby winners, so on, so forth. This. So I'm trying to think of what else was on the short list. Looking through it, you've got the likes of ARC winners like Monsieur, Saki, both fantastic horses in their day. We're going to go for one that's a bit left field. And again, you're probably going to raise an eyebrow at this, and I'll get either a smack for saying it. But a horse that I'll tell you what, I'll give you what I've written about it. Beat Saki in the Derby, who obviously went on to win the ARC. Saki did. Also beat Monsieur in the 2000 ARC. Monsieur subsequently went on to win an ARC as well. Now, I know he didn't race often, only lost once. And although perhaps his ARC wasn't stacked, I'd say beating future greats in Saki and Monsieur, all right, not greats, but very good horses, surely it gives Sindar a half-decent mention. Perhaps a bit of a forgotten horse. Aga Khan's ARC winner, Derby winner, if I'm correct. I think ended up winning, Derby winner as well. Only lost once. Again, I know it's not See the Stars. See the Stars would have been my choice, but I think perhaps a horse that's grossly underestimated. Didn't Sindar, decent horse? No, puzzle looks.
No.
Afterwards.
The thing is, all of these horses were mentioned, but if you owned any one of them, you'd be absolutely delighted. See the Stars or Sindar. Do you know what I mean? These are all fantastic horses.
I mean, Irish Derby winner as well.
These are horses of a lifetime for some people. Yeah. So whichever one you go for, but I think we should mention Enable.
Yeah,
and
100%.
For
just out of curiosity, what put you off? Is it just the fact that she's a filly?
No, I think winning she win 3 King George as a filly. I know they get the weight allowance and that's a different story, but I think fillies are more likely to go off the boil than a colt. If I'm honest, a little bit more fragile, maybe a little bit more mentally fragile. So to keep her as sweet as they did for so long to race at that level, I think is impressive. So yeah, I mean, I possibly Enable might have even been my second choice behind. People talk about generations and what they'd be, and I did that to a little extent with Double Trigger, but to come back year after year and even be competitive in these races is a feat, let alone win them year after year. So
I mean, something we've touched upon that you've said there is like the likes of Sindar, the likes of Galileo, they didn't have lengthy careers by any stretch of the imagination. Obviously, going off to the sheds is a different game for a colt, but you then look at an Abel and you kind of go, well, that she's done something that a lot of these sort of male horses, these colts, these stallions, haven't done by having a longevity of a career and repeating performances, which is ticking a box that a lot don't have, I suppose.
Yeah. And before we move on, Nijinsky and Shergar for the IPs.
So moving on, that now means that I'm back to the picking next. Now sprinter or handicapper. You know what? I'm going to get the really tough, horrible one out of the way with, and it's handicapper. Now, I think the three of us can all agree that the stipulation that basically said that the handicapper that we chose wasn't allowed to have won any sort of black type, any listed or group race, made it an absolute, and I'm going to swear, fucking nightmare. It was the most ridiculous one, I think, for all of us. I was going through the process, think of a horse, and then look at his form and absolutely pray to God that he'd not won any sort of black type. I looked at horses like the Tatlin, who did really well in top class races, so I hope maybe didn't have any group wins, but won multiple group races. I also forgot about Borderless Scott's none thought win, which is a nightmare when I thought I'd gotten onto something. That gave me a bit of a kick in the bollocks as well. And I did the same with sprinters like Stepper Point and Jack Dexter was another one that was in there that had picked up sort of pattern company race. Then I thought of horses over much further. Went the opposite side of things, ended up with Geordie Land. It was runner-up in the Ascot Gold Cup twice, but again won a couple of lesser group races. Now I thought I'd absolutely smashed it with Luca Kamani's Purple Moon. Former E-Ball winner who placed in group races all over the world without winning one. So I was absolutely rubbing my hands. But when I saw a bloody listed win at Goodwood in the form book, I could have screamed. All those thoughts the same when I had Norse Dancer in my head, but a couple of Group 3 wins put paid to that idea as well. Don't even mention like Soddy and Caspian Prince, who never won a group race or listed race in the UK, but went to bloody Ireland and won a Group 3 at the current listed race at Dundalk of all fucking places. Anyway, finally ended up with a sort of not a short list, but the horses that I scrambled around. And when I mentioned the two that I've not picked, Aim to Prosper, I think, won the Cesarewitch on two separate occasions in 2010 and 2012, but also won a Class 2 staying handicap at Ascot, ran in the Ascot Gold Cup, the Goodwood Cup, and the Doncaster Cup, all listed level a few times, and was fourth, I think, in the Henry II Stakes. The other horse that I like the look of as well was Mass Rally from Michael Dodds. Only ever won 3 turf races, but won I think it was a sprint trophy at York, another Class 2 sprint at York, but also the Ayr Silver Cup. Wasn't exactly the most prolific, but did place in the likes of Group 3 race at Newcastle, the Symphony Stakes at York, the SIS sprint at Ascot, third in the Scottish Stewards Cup. Really decent.
You're gonna mention every horse in fucking training, you or what?
However, and I'm going to tell you now, you think you've got something to complain about now, the next few sentences you're going to really give me a kicking. But you know what, boys? I put a little shout out on my own personal Twitter and got a bit of help from someone that I tagged in, and they went, actually, absolutely legend, put forward a horse, sprinting type, goes by the name of Hoof It. Now, he's a horse I remember back into when I began handicap at York a fair while back. I think it was about 10 odd years ago. But I wasn't convinced he'd won a listed or a Group 3 race. I was convinced he'd won a listed or a Group 3 race, but he hadn't. So whether or not I deserve this one, I'm not sure. But anyway, I'm having it. Who Fit, Mickey's to be, absolutely amazing record. You know, in terms of places, it was the Wentworth Stakes, Sprint Cup at Adolph, it was Group 1, finished third twice in that race. The Cleve Stakes, which is a listed race at Linfield, he placed on. The Group 3 Bengo Stakes at Ascot, third in the Air Gold Cup, third again in this Coral Sprint Trophy, grabbed place money in other big Class 2 handicap sprints. And then obviously he won like the Stewart Sprint Stakes at Glorious Goodwood, Stewart's Cup at Glorious Goodwood, Sky Bet Dash and Sporting Bet Stakes at York, and then just the Betfair handicap at Doncaster, I think in October. Who Fit, my handicapper, Mickey's to be, absolute legend of a horse. I think carried on racing for goodness knows how long as well. But yeah, that's mine. Apologise to the guy who put the shout out on Twitter. I need to give you the credit. But anyway, there we go. Your face. Chris, do you think it was yours?
I'd give you a fucking Who Fit right in knackers. Mentioned every bastard in training for the last 20 years. And then he gets help to give it. Honestly, well, I'm not
nodded off there.
I'll keep it nice and brief, and it'll be a personable thing for me. I won't go through every single horse in training like Rory because I'll probably mention Max, but I'm going to go with Prince of Johan. I absolutely love this horse. He weren't a prolific winner as such. I think he won 9 from 47 or something along them lines, and he didn't win loads and loads of big race handicaps, but he won enough, and I'll never forget him winning the Cambridgeshire. Fantastic performance. I think he was 40 to 1 that day. He was a great horse as well. He had that allure for your fans. I probably just butchered how to say allure then. I don't know why. But fantastic horse. Hard as nails. And Rory's laughing at me in the corner, but he also won the Royal Hunt Cup at Royal Ascot, and that was another good day out I had on him. So, yeah, I mean, he was just a personal favourite of mine. He won me a few quid, and, yeah, absolutely fantastic horse. Came from a small operation, top-class handicapper. Don't need to mention every horse in training. Tate.
Right, so it's Who Fit for me, Prince of Johan for Chris. Matt?
So, yeah, I mean, it was a difficult task. I mean, there's not many, when you talk about top-class handicappers rated 100 and above, most of them have maybe achieved some Group 3 or listed race success. So
annoyingly, they have. Yeah.
It would have been so easy for me if this was. I keep repeating this. If this was all time, Chaplin's Club and Glencroft for David Chapman, the sprint trainer, the master sprint trainer before Dandy Nichols and Robert Cowler, saying that tongue in cheek.
I remember seeing pictures of them in black and white. They were great horses.
Chaplin's Club, I think, for 2 seasons, won 8 or 9 races a season for 2 seasons, owned by Peter Saville, who owned Celtic Swing and the like. And Glencroft did similar, won 8 or 9 races in 1 season. Incredible feats, but sadly, we're not talking about the late 80s. So I've gone for a horse called Bronze Angel, a dual Cambridgeshire winner. So when you look at handicappers, you always think of the big handicaps like the Wokingham, the Hunt Cup, Ybor, Cambridgeshire, Cesarewitch. Cambridgeshire is one of my favourite races of the whole season. It's coming up this weekend. So he won it. He was a quirky horse. There's no doubt about it. He used to wear headgear. Everything had to go right for him. But on his day, when the circumstances were right, he won the Cambridgeshire easily twice. I think he won it. Then I'm not sure if he won it or not. He won it again. And the second time he won it, he followed up a short time later at Ascot, winning the Balmoral Handicap, which was 150 grand to the winner. So I think, he was in and out. There's no doubt about that. But he was reasonably consistent. He ran well in all the big handicaps, won a few. He won almost £450,000 in prize money, which is not bad for a handicapper, and had a peak rating of 111. So, he was more than useful. And I think to win a race like the Cambridgeshire twice Rambo's Hall did it, I think, in the 80s for Jeremy Glover and Dean McEwen, but can't argue with that.
Yeah, with class horse.
I know. I mean, when you mentioned it, like, what an absolute shout that is! Like, I'd been convinced that it had won a listed race or a group race. It was absolute quality horse that was. I remember the year when it sort of caught fire and sort of caught the public imagination. Really, really, really good horse. That's 3 out of the 4 done, chaps. So Matt, last but by no means least, the sprinters. You get to go to bat first. So all these absolute speed merchants. I mean, you've got absolute tons to probably mention, but where's yours, bud?
So my all-time favourite sprinter, sadly, was born slightly too early. Deja would have been my number 1 pick without question of a doubt. But
it wasn't far off as well with Deja. I think they finished the career in 1990. I think.
Yeah.
So I mean, geez,
so that was out of the question. So when you think about modern day sprinters, I think of Choisir, who did the famous double at Ascot, the King's Stand and the Golden Jubilee. I look back through all the July Cups and the King's Stands and the Golden Jubilees, but I want to go for a really recent horse. Now, if the hype that surrounded Batash, his performances, course record holder at York, fantastically consistent for numerous years. Blue Point is my selection. Blue Point brushed him aside for me in the King's Stand. Now, if we're saying Batash is one of the best sprinters of the last 20, 30 years, Blue Point brushed him aside at Ascot, and then to go on and win the Golden Jubilee as well over 6 at the same meeting. I think on his day, he did have some indifferent runs. There's no doubt about it. He did in Maidan and everything, but just on his peak performances to brush aside Batash the way he did, and then go and win
did it with ease as well.
The Golden Jubilee. I think on either of those 2 performances would put him almost at the top of the sprinting division over the last 20 years, probably. So Blue Point for me.
Mr. Connolly?
Yeah, I've won this one hands down. I don't think I need to do much talking about this horse, although I will just for the sake of it. The stipulations are one of the rules that the horse had to run at least once in the UK or Ireland, yeah?
Oh, no. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. I know what you're going to have done, haven't you?
So
I'm going to... He's a Royal Ascot run, isn't it?
It might be. But I'm going to go with an Australian-based horse, actually.
No, you bastard. You bastard. Oh, he didn't have orange spots. Oh, you shit.
Yeah, I don't think there's much of an argument to this. I hadn't even mentioned it.
By any chance,
Beg your pardon?
Oh, yeah. It wasn't a mare or a filly, was it, by any chance? Orange silk with black spots.
Oh, well, it could have been, yeah, it could have been. But I'm going to go with I'm glad I got this one, to be fair, just to fuck Rory. But anyway, I'm going to go with Black Caviar. 25 from 25. I won over £4.5 million in prize money. Obviously unbeaten. Won 22 group races on the bounce. 15 of them Group 1 races. She travelled over, and in all honesty, when she won over here, it weren't impressive. She was eased up towards a finish, but she was subsequently found to be lame. She went back home, rediscovered her best, rattled off more Grade 1 victories, or Group 1s, whichever way you want to say it. She beat top class sprinters in Australia easily, absolutely destroyed them. She was a stunning racehorse to look at on the eye. I mean, I used to get up in the early hours of the morning to watch this horse, and that is a very rare thing for me to do. She was an absolute sensation, and I would say she is one of the top 3 greatest sprinters of all time. There's not even a doubt about it. And people knock her for not winning by 5 or 6 lengths at Ascot. She was beating horses in Australia. I don't have an explanation without swearing on the bridle. She was absolutely pissing all over them. Fantastic. And even better that I've shafted Rory. So Black Caviar for me.
Oh, you know what? I was sat
Enjoy,
here
pal.
like a right smoke bastard going, they won't have had it. Look at him, talking Blue Point. Yeah,
Have
that's
Brando instead.
Yeah, that
Have
one
Brando
run in the
instead.
UK and Ireland. I was like,
He's
you know
on
what?
tilt.
I've got notes. I've got notes how I'm going to talk about Schwazier and
Delfini.
being a really good
What you can do-
Australian horse. And,
It's what you can do with your notes, pal.
oh, mate, you can tell. Might as well sat behind my laptop. You know what? I'm going to verbatim. This is what I was going to do. So you know, I've got a list here. You know, Lock Song was a decent horse, but only ever ran in '95, so didn't qualify. You know, Silent Witness was a really good Australian horse, but never raced over here. Schwazier was another Australian horse that did. However, I'm going to go with another Australian one. Stipulations were only running over here once. It's like you've almost read the. Oh, right. Anyway, my second choice. I agree with you, Matt, a little bit, and I might get a bit of daggers for this, but I wouldn't say Batash is overrated, but I think the horse gets a lot of credit where others don't, e.g. Blue Point. Where Batash has won 4 Group 1s, I mean, you'd be truffed to bits if you owned the horse or trained the horse, but a horse that has won more than that all over the world, Soul Power, I think 5 Group 1s, you know, which is one more than Batash. Really consistent type, raced over multiple seasons, over various different countries, travelled all over the world. I think it's something like 12 group race victories, you know, included some of the big Royal Ascot sprints. Soul Power was my second choice after Black Caviar, but fair play to Chris. Can't really argue with that. But yeah, Soul Power. You know, I agree with you, Matt, as well. Deja, quality horse, but didn't make the cut. Another horse I think perhaps a bit underrated, maybe Muhra. Didn't perhaps have the longevity as others, but definitely deserves a mention with the sprinters. But yeah, Black Caviar, you absolute shit. So it'll have to be Soul Power for me. So just to run through them, here I am as I absolutely vent typing in the words Black Caviar next to the name of the knobhead Chris. Well, that's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Absolutely fine. Not a problem. Not bitter or annoyed or whatsoever. So anyway, R4. Mine stayers. I've got Yates. I've got Soul Power as the sprinter. Sindar as a 1 mile 4 horse, and Hoof It as a handicapper. Chris's fantasy stable consists of Cave Tara as his stayer, Black Caviar as his sprinter, High Chaparral as his 1 mile 4 horse, and Prince of Johan as his handicapper. And Matt, your stayer is Double Trigger. We've got Blue Point as your sprinter, See the Stars as your 1 mile 4 horse, and an absolute amazing show with your handicapper, Bronze Angel. We'll be putting those on Facebook and Twitter as of Monday. Well, it's Monday now, so sorry, as of Tuesday, you'll be able to vote on which horse or which stable you think is the best. And by next week, we will see which one of the 3 of us comes out on top. If you can all shaft Chris for stealing Black Caviar and shaft Matt for stealing See the Stars from me, that'd be great. But anyway, moving on, chaps. Talking about horses of yesteryear, we'll talk about horses in more recent history. It is time to look back over the past week and get open our racing notebook. So it is the racing notebook. This is whereby we have a look at the racing over the last 7 days and we pinpoint a horse that you should be putting in your trackers. I'll go first, chaps. It wasn't too much that I liked over the last week up until today. A bit of a humble brag. I had 4 out of 4 in the Lucky 15 today, and the horse that rounded things off for me in my 4th and final leg came over in Ireland. It was at Fairy House. It's basically a horse that did really well. It remains unbeaten. It was his 2nd start. Won his 1st race and ended up going to listed company. Won again today. and did it really, really nicely. Comes from the yard of, let me think now, Joe Lyons, and his straight answer, it's not going to necessarily be a horse that you're going to get massive prices for. I actually don't even know whether or not we'll see that horse again this season, but I know it's very, very, very far in advance. I still think it's one horse to follow for next year's flat. Like I said, 2 starts now in his career, unbeaten in both, absolutely dominated a half-decent field today, won by as much as it wanted to, over 6 furlongs. Like I said, not 100% convinced it'll be seen again this year. If it is, I don't think it'll be a massive price, but I can't see much touching it. But it's definitely a horse, certainly to play the long game with. Straight answer from the yard of Joe Lyons to potentially be a bit of a superstar in 2022. You've heard it here first. Mr. Connolly, aka my arch nemesis. Anything you like the look of over the last 7 days?
Yeah, and I'm going to be unkind because that's just where I am. But anyway, my horse to follow is Hong Kong Harry. He ran in the 4 o'clock on Saturday. I think it was over a mile. Clear eye catcher. But I'm going to have a little bit of a cribbit jockey. I know people don't like it, but Paul Hannigan had this horse positioned in an absolutely terrible position. Took far too long to get out. Had to go too wide, and he was gaining hand over fist towards the end. An unexposed type over around the mile trip, that'd be fine for me. Just a note on Paul Hannigan lately. I noticed he's lost a ride on Perfect Power, who runs in a group race at Newmarket at the weekend. I think this was down to a ride he gave the horse at Goodwood a couple of starts back when it was beaten. I just don't think he's been riding at the top of his game lately. And like I said, the ride on Hong Kong Harry was absolutely baffling. I mean, whether or not the handicapper takes a dim view of that effort or not, I don't know. But the horse looks almost guaranteed to find a race next time out, or maybe the time after. Definitely a winner waiting to happen. It's a terrible ride at the weekend.
So it's Hong Kong Harry for Chris and Mr. Polly.
I'd mentioned it earlier on. Count Dorsey. It's been a horse I've been keeping an eye on for a bit of a time now. He ran a blinder in the Portland, as I mentioned earlier, running on into 3rd, not beaten that far, and then probably found the Air Gold Cup coming a bit too soon, maybe after the Portland, 2 really competitive handicaps. So maybe give him a little break, and I think there's definitely a 5 furlong handicap, maybe at Newcastle, somewhere like that, to be won before the season's out. As long as I can't imagine a handicap was going to do too much with him. I think he ended up finishing about 7th or 8th in the Air Gold Cup, but he was bang there a furlong out with a chance, and maybe he might need to drop a couple of pounds, but he's definitely a winner waiting to happen. And we've got the Cambridgeshire coming up this Saturday, one of my favourite races of the season. We mentioned a while ago, I put up a horse called Lucanda, who ran an eye-catching race at York. He was 2nd in the Cambridgeshire last season. I put him up for the Cambridgeshire again. The only concern is that if it stays dry, it won't be in his favour. But hopefully, if we get a bit of rain, I could see Lucanda running well in the Cambridgeshire on Saturday, rain weather permitting.
Brilliant. So it is straight answer for myself. Hong Kong Harry for Chris. Count Dorsey, who seems to be everyone's fancy at some point. For Matt, and obviously one that you've given previously, the Candor, who could go well this Saturday. You've heard it here first, so pop them down in your notebooks, in your trackers, wherever you keep abreast of any horses to follow, and make sure you do so and you don't miss out on a winner. So, chaps, as it comes to customary too, we end our show with a little round of Who Am I? Normally, I will be cheering you on, Chris. However, after this week's antics, you can basically sod off. As we said last week, it is horses that have either won or placed in the Air Gold Cup since the year 2000. I have 5 horses in front of me, 5 clues with each horse, if you're not accustomed to it by now. Very simple. I read out these 5 clues. If either Chris or Matt get them after 1 clue, it's 5 points. 2 clues, it's 4 points. 3 clues, it's 3. 4 clues, it's 2 points. And if you get it after 5 clues, it is 1 point. They say the name to buzz in and get a chance. If they get it wrong, they cannot ask to have another go at that same horse. So, chaps, without further ado, horse number 1. Clue number 1. So on Saturday, we saw Bielsa win the Ayr Gold Cup for Kevin Stott and Kevin Ryan. Bielsa is owned by the King Power Partnership. This previous Ayr Gold Cup winner went on to also be owned by the King Power team. So on Saturday, we saw Bielsa win the Ayr Gold Cup for Kevin Stott and Kevin Ryan. Bielsa is owned by the King Power Partnership. This previous Ayr Gold Cup winner went on to also be owned by the King Power team. Clue number 2. Their Ayr Gold Cup victory was actually its first ever career win, having finished placed in all 4 of their previous racecourse starts. They won as the 4-1 second favourite. Their Ayr Gold Cup victory was actually their first ever career win, having finished placed in all 4 of their previous career starts, and it won as the 4-1 second favourite. Clue number 3. I was trained by Richard Fahey, ridden by Jack Garrity, and represented the Powerhouse Syndicate of Midland Park. Trained by Richard Fahey, ridden by Jack Garrity, and represented the Powerhouse Syndicate of Midland Park. Clue number 4. Just 2 races after my Ayr victory, I won a Group 2 6-furlong contest in France. Just 2 races after my Ayr victory, I won a Group 2 6-furlong contest in France. And clue number 5. The pinnacle of my career came in my last ever race when winning the Group 1 Champion Sprint Stakes at Ascot in October 2019, when I, as a 33-1 winner, finished ahead of joint favourite One Master. The pinnacle of my career.
Matt.
It's Matt's go.
Don Juan Triumphant.
Fuck's sake.
Indeed it is. Indeed it is. Don Juan Triumphant did win the 2019 Champion Sprint Stakes at Ascot at 33-1. Previous Ayr Gold Cup winner, who represented Midland Park, who was later bought by the King Power team. That is Matt 1, Mr. Connolly 0. Normally I remain biased, but go on, Matt. Now, in my excitement of hoping to see Chris lose, I did forget to play the intro. So, I'll always a bit skew if.
Who am I?
There we go. That helps me when I'm editing it. Horse number 2 is only 1-0 though, Chris, so you've got more than enough time to fight back. Horse number 2, clue number 1. Between the years 2000 and 2005, trainer Dandy Nichols trained the winners of 4 of those Ayr Gold Cups. This horse is the only one in that 5-year period not to hail from Nichols' yard.
Beg your pardon?
So between the years 2000 and 2005, trainer Dandy Nichols trained the winner of 4 of those Ayr Gold Cups. This horse is the only one of those 5 that didn't come from Nichols' yard. So between the year 2000 and 2005, 4 of those winners were trained by Nichols. This horse is the only one
Chris,
in those 5 years.
that wasn't trained by Dandy Nichols.
that wasn't trained by Dandy Nichols?
Keto.
For 5 points, he's correct. It is Keto.
Backed it.
David Chapman.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, coincidentally, the other clues, and I'll rattle them off quickly. Clue number 2, since the year 2000, I hold the 4th quickest race time in the Air Gold Cup, and jockey Tony Culhane steered my then 6-year-old self to quick success. Clue number 3, my trainer's career spanned over 40 years before he passed away at the age of 77. His granddaughter Ruth Carr then took over his operation in 2008. Clue number 4, despite placing in multiple group races, the best grade I ever found success in was at listed level, claiming 6 listed victories in total. And I'm a filly who represented the famous blue and white stunts of owner Michael Hill. Indeed it is. Keto, that's Chris 5, Matt 1. Here we go. Horse number 3. Clue number 1. Since the year 2000, 4 different horses. So this is a long clue. Clue number 1, so listen carefully. Since the year 2000, 4 different horses have separately placed in and won the Air Gold Cup. 1 was Continent and 1 was Advanced. They both won the race and also finished 3rd. This horse, on the other hand, is one of the duo who finished as runner-up and then won it the year after.
Chris.
Now, it's one of 2 horses that have either run.
I'm gonna have to guess because I've shouted in. And I know both of them. Fonthill Road.
If I give you the second clue, we'll see whether or not you're right. Born in the new millennium, strangely, my last ever race came in the 2008 running of the Air Gold Cup. My last success came in a 21 runner handicap when going off as the joint 6-1 favourite over in Ireland at the Curragh. And I was still based with my trainer in Yorkshire.
It's Fonthill Road, isn't it?
It is.
Other one would have been Louis the Pious.
Indeed, it would have been. That's 10-1 to Mr. Connolly.
Long way back now.
Well, it can be done. Horse number 4. Clue number 1. I was a US import who was born in 1995 and won my one and only start at Ayr, claiming the illustrious sprint handicap in the process. I never returned to defend or recapture my crown. So as a US import who was born in 1995, won his one and only start at Ayr, which was the Air Gold Cup. Never went back to Ayr, never raced at Ayr previously or subsequently, won the Air Gold Cup and never returned. Clue number 2. I had a lengthy career that started with my debut in Ireland in May 1998 and ended at Ripon in August 2007. I had a lengthy career that started with my debut in Ireland in May 1998 and ended at Ripon.
Matt, I've got to guess because I can only draw now if it's for 4 points. Coastal Bluff.
It's not Coastal Bluff.
I'm stuck between 2. I'm stuck between 2. I've got yours now. I'm not
you can have another clue if you want. You can have another clue. Clue number 3. Despite winning this famous Scottish race, my best achievement came when winning the Group 1 Nunthorpe ahead of the likes of the Tatling, race favourite One Cool Cat, Orientor, Airwave, and Fire Up the Band. I was a 16-1 outsider that day.
Now you're from me. I thought I had it.
It's a winner of the Group 1 Nunthorpe ahead of the likes of the Tatlin, One Cool Cat, Orientor, Airwave, and Fire Up the Band. And I was 16 to 1 outside of that day.
I've got it now. It now.
Right, here we go. Clue number 4. That wasn't my only group race victory. I also won the Phoenix Stakes at Leopardstown in August 2001. That wasn't my only group race victory. No. And number 5, trained by Dandy Nichols and ridden by son Adrian, I won the Air Gold Cup in the year 2000 at a massive price of 33 to 1.
Should have said it to begin with, because this was one that I'm thinking of, Birmingham Pirate.
Yeah.
Indeed it is. For 1 point, it is maybe. There we go. That's Chris 11.
The last one's worth 10 points, you say?
I mean, to be honest with you, the way you shafted me with Black Caviar, I'm halfway making it 20 points, to be honest. Right, here we go. Chris 11, Matt 1.
This is my sort of subject. It'll be all right when national season starts. I'll be fucked.
Bear me 1 second. You know what, boys? I made a night. I've absolutely made a night here, eh? I've gone and deleted the bloody clues for horse number 5. He has. Oh, he's gone and deleted them.
Don't matter.
He's not on here. On his little Word document he saved with all his prep. I mean,
well, can you remember any of it?
Not a clue.
I was big anyway.
What a dial.
Oh, nightmare. Absolute nightmare. I tell you what, I'm glad it was a bloody whitewash. Jesus. Brewery in there. I think it was a horse that won the race twice. Dandy Nichols' horse.
Funfair Wayne.
Funfair Wayne.
That's the one.
I was waiting for that horse. I've been waiting for that horse to come. That was the only horse.
You've been waiting a long time. I've deleted the best.
That was the only horse other than Bielsa I can remember winning the Air Gold Cup.
Well, that being said, that's another win for Chris.
Who owned Funfair Wayne?
They had maroon colours, didn't they? Did they have like a maroon? Yeah. I can't remember who owned it.
Kevin Keegan.
Was it?
Did they?
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And yet he had his horses running in West Ham colours.
Burnley.
Yeah. Right, boys. So, seeing as though Mr. Connolly has, seeing as though we focused on sprinters, shall we say, and Northern Handicap, that we give Mr. Connolly, Mr. Polly, a bit of a chance. So you said that it's the Cambridgeshire this week. Is Cambridgeshire?
Yeah, Saturday.
Is it? So Matt, I'll tell you what, we'll go with Cambridgeshire winners from 95 to. I'll tell you what, we'll go from 90 to 2010.
Whoa, 90, our own 5.
Well,
what even allowed to count? How responsible is this? I wasn't even allowed to bet.
Well, you're older than me.
You still were. You still were, to be fair.
Yeah, well, badly.
Yeah, you're still not responsible. Well, you've got a week to prep, so we'll go just the winners from 1990 to 2010.
Fucking hell, that's me out.
Do some research.
I know a few of them.
Well, we'll see next week. And I'll make sure I've got 5 of the bookers as well. As always, chaps, it's been an absolute pleasure. Any likes, comments, shares, all that crap. Let us know what your fantasy stables would have been. Give us a vote on which 3 of our fantasy stables are the best. Any comments, any questions for next week, pop them in the comments below. Any love and support, always welcome. I've been Rory. Those two have been an absolute bunch of idiots. And it's been the Turf Talk podcast.